Hello everyone, this is Yana Smakula. Welcome back to my channel and happy STAMPtember. I'm so excited for the new STAMPtember event from Simon Says Stamp. If you are new to the STAMPtember celebration or to Simon Says Stamp family, STAMPtember is a month-long celebration of stamping and crafting and all the fun. I have been a fan of STAMPtember ever since I learned about it, and that was quite a few years ago. And every year I look forward to September because that means we get to have so much crafty fun every single day. So today I am bringing you several card ideas using several of the new STAMPtember products from Simon Says Stamp. And my favorite product is a set of layering stencils. Now, I did say that STAMPtember is all about stamping, but that doesn't mean we can't do other types of crafting. So today I am playing with the Layred numbers stencil from Simon Says Stamp, as well as with a few sentiment stamp sets, and I'll show you those later as I work on my cards. So the Layred numbers stencil set is a set of 3 stencils, and the minute I saw it, I knew that it's going to be my favorite, my go-to set of layering stencils for, stenciled numbers. I have been dreaming about stencil set like this, because this gives a very modern and a very unique and graphic and bold look, and this is so very me. So I've always wanted a stencil set like this. So when I saw it, I was immediately drawn to it, and I have even already made a card using it. You can see it off to the side here. This stencil is super easy to use, and I will show you that in this video. So all of the stencil layers, there's 3 layers, they all have etching at the very bottom. There's no layer 1, layer 2, layer 3. These aren't marked like that. You just have 3 different layers. It doesn't matter in which order you use them. You basically just use each layer to stencil a different part of a number. And for some numbers, you are only using 2 layers. For example, number 1 and number 7 use just 2 layers, but all other numbers use 3 layers. Now, these stencils are cut to 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches, so they are the size of an A2 card front. Now, the way I like to use them is I found that I just like to cut my paper to the exact same size and then use some low-tech tape. Here, I'm using the Spellbinders Best Ever Craft tape. I have a piece of wide tape. And sometimes I will also use another piece of tape at the bottom to tape my stencil at the bottom as well. So I basically just tape the stencil to my paper and then use my blending brush to apply the color. Now for this first card, I flipped through my color inspiration. This is something that I made many years ago using different color images that I found on Pinterest, and I just printed that onto these 6x6 sheets of paper, and I flip through them. I have them hanging on my IKEA pegboard, and I use this as inspiration whenever I'm not sure what colors of ink I want to use. So today I'm using this one, and I really like the green, the yellow, and the peach colors in this color combination. I'm skipping red just because I felt like red might be a little bit too strong. So I'm using Perfection for my green, Citrus for my yellow, and Peachy for my peach color. There are many ways that you can use this stencil. So in this case, I'm going to ink blend each layer using a different color of ink. So for layer 1, I'm using green ink. For layer 2, I'm going to use yellow. And then for layer 3, I'm going to use peach. You can do more complex ink blending as always. I mean, there's so many different tricks and techniques that you can do with ink blending, but I just wanted to do simple 1-layer color application. I didn't want to do any gradient or anything like that. I just wanted a solid layer of color on my cards. So I ink blended the green panel. I then carefully remove my stencil from the background. I clean it using a wet baby wipe. I just want to make sure that it's clean for my next ink blending session. I stayed in my craft room and I played with these stencils for quite a bit. I was just inspired. I wanted to try all the different color combinations and all of the different things that I could do with it. I thought about using a pen and even outlining these shapes, maybe like a black pen to add some black detail. I will admit that I chickened out and I didn't actually do it, but I do hope to come back to this stencil and do try it. When I ink blended my very first background, I used the edge of the cardstock to align the layers, but I have found that that's not the best way to do it. The best way to do it is to eyeball it. Make sure you like the placement of the second and the third layer, and then tape your stencils in place. So using the corner or the edge method is not really the best in this particular case. So I ink blended my yellow layer. Once again, I cleaned this stencil using a wet baby wipe, and I moved on to the peachy color. Love it. This stencil is super easy to ink blend. I'm using the large blending brushes, but I also later switched to the small blending brushes by Simon Says Stamp, just because I wanted to do more complex ink blending and use more colors of ink. And I was kind of running out of the brushes for the ink blending. So you can use whatever ink blending tools you like. I really like these blending brushes from Simon Says Stamp, especially the large brushes, because they allow me to pick up and transfer a lot of color in an instant. So I don't have to constantly come back to my ink pad to pick up more color and bring it to my paper. And here's my background all nice and ready. It's a very, simple color combination, and I really like it. We have a little bit of yellow, a little bit of green, and a little bit of peach. Here's another background that I ink blended. I didn't actually use this one, but I wanted to show it to you. And the colors that I used here, I just went with like a pink ombre, and I went with guava, watermelon, and cherry. And you can do this with any other colors you like, any other colors you might have in your stash. The Simon Says Stamp positively saturated inks all come in groupings of 3. So if you have those, you can ink blend a bunch of different backgrounds using those colors of ink, to match the occasion or to match the recipient's favorite color or things like that. I do have another background that I wanted to show you, and this time I kind of thought about doing a rainbow background and playing with all of the different colors of inks. I started blending the rainbow by using yellow, and here I'm starting with the sunbeam, and I'll also use citrine color just because number 1 only uses 2 colors, so sunbeam and citrine. I am using a little bit of tape to mask the sections next to the section that I am blending to make sure that I don't have any ink transfer where I don't want it, and I'm blending each number one by one using the different colors of ink, creating my rainbow. So I then used celery, Limelicious, and Perfection for number 2, Seafoam, Surf, and Ocean for number 3, Marine, Cadet, and Royal for number 4. Then I went to Lilac, Orchid, and Amethyst to number 5. Number 7, which is again a number you are only using 2 colors of ink for, was ink blended with Carnation and Peony. And then for number 8, I used Peachy, Grapefruit, and Mandarin. And then number 9 was ink blended with Melon, Cantaloupe, and Sherbet. This particular ink blending took a little bit longer, well, a lot longer, because I had to be very careful when I was switching between different colors. I kind of had to keep track of, which color I used, which color I'm about to use, but it wasn't that hard to do. And I loved the multicolor, the rainbow background this gave me. I just love the happy and the cheerful result that I was able to create. This stencil is absolutely fabulous. It makes it very easy to use. You can, of course, also use, your different pastes. If you want to add some glitter or some sparkle to your background, you definitely can do that. You can even do a little bit of dry embossing. I showed that in one of my previous videos where you have a layering stencil and you use one layer to dry emboss with. So that gives an embossed result just to a part of your ink blended background, and that looks fabulous. So lots and lots of things you can do with it. I just wanted to experiment and play with different colors, and so that's what I did for this background. And here's a look at this rainbow background. I love all of the different colors that I have here. I trimmed each of my backgrounds down to 4 by 5¼ inches. So I just took a 1/4 inch off from each panel because I wanted to foam mount each of these panels onto a light gray background, just, to offset all of that color with something. Next, I worked on creating sentiments for my cards, and for all of my cards, I did white heat embossing on black cardstock. I cut the heat embossed sentiments out either using a coordinating die or I just cut them into a banner and I foam mounted them onto a card. So for this card, I used one of the new stamp sets from the STAMPtember release, and this is the Enjoy Phrases stamp set. I heat embossed that large solid Enjoy in detail white embossing powder onto black cardstock. I first treated my cardstock with an anti-static powder tool from Simon Says Stamp. I love using that tool. It dispenses just the right amount of powder to keep my embossing perfect. I did do my embossing twice because doing it once did not give me a white enough embossed result, if you know what I mean. It didn't look, solid white. And the reason for that is because I used a detail white embossing powder. I probably should have used regular white embossing powder, but I grabbed the detail white, and it's a fine powder. So that works best for detail sentiments. And here, because this is such a bold sentiment, I would have had much better results if I used regular embossing powder, but that was fine. So I re-stamped it again using the Versamark ink. I added more white embossing powder on top. I heat set it, and that gave me double layer of white embossing, which looked absolutely perfect on the finished card. I used a coordinating die and I cut it out, and I love that this stamp set comes with a coordinating die because you can have a beautiful die cut Enjoy for your card. Next, I placed the background and the Enjoy inside my Mini Misty stamping tool, and I positioned a little sub-sentiment under the Enjoy. And the sub-sentiment reads this card. So it says, enjoy this card. And I stamped it in VersaFine Onyx Black ink, as that is my go-to black ink for stamping. I foam mounted the Enjoy onto my background. I cut another Enjoy from black fun foam. I used a coordinating die to do that. Sometimes when you are using fun foam under your die cut, it tends to squish and it tends to stick out. So what I like to do is I like to trim it down a little bit using my scissors, just make a smaller die cut. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just using scissors to make it slightly smaller so that nothing is going to stick from behind my die cut. Next, I'm using the Misty glue gun. I just received it in the mail a couple of days ago, and I couldn't wait to try it. I know it's been out for a few weeks already. It first came out when I was on vacation, and I was super intrigued with this tool, and I've only used it once so far when I was making this card. And I have to tell you guys, I really love how easy it is to use. I love that I don't need to close my glue all the time and that it does not dry. It does not clog. I will continue to test it because, like I said, I've only tried it while making this card. I did spend a whole afternoon in my craft room working on these projects because I loved that stencil. So for the entire afternoon, I did not close my glue, and I also did not close it afterwards. So I'll see next time once I come back to use it if it has clogged or not, but I think it's going to work just perfect. I then used a panel of Simon Says Stamp Fog cardstock. I adhered it to an A2 side folding card base to create that light gray background. I also had 2 sheets of scrap paper, and I used those behind my ink blended panel to raise it up a little bit above the background, just to add a little bit of dimension, not too much, but just a little bit. And I love the way this looks. And then I adhered or foam mounted the Enjoy on top. I'm also adding a couple of stamped stars here and there, just something to add a little bit of additional movement to this card, and I love the way this looks. These stars come from an older stamp set from Kathy Zilski and Simon Says Stamp, and it is called Stop Drop Party. And I also have another card with a sentiment from this stamp set. Now for the yellow, green, and peach card, I decided to use a different stamp set from Simon Says Stamp. This is also something that is released today for STAMPtember. This is a beautiful set called Sassy Friends, and here I'm heat embossing the Best Friends sentiment, again using the detail white embossing powder. And here, by the way, I once again double embossed it to have that nicer white finish on my card. I also stamped a sub-sentiment under the Best Friends, and the sentiment reads, "Can call at 4 a.m. and know you'll pick up." But then I also added the second part of the sentiment on the inside of my card, and that says, "Unless my phone is on, do not disturb." Love it. I love all of the sentiments in this stamp set. They're quite big, so they would work great for the inside of your card if you wanted to add a super sassy sentiment and send this card to your best friend. So here's a look at the cards I have for you today, created with the layered numbers stamp set from Simon Says Stamp from STAMPtember. Thanks so much for spending time with me today. Love you guys, and I'll see you next time.